Hello, this is Malorian, and this will be a 2,500 point game of my Orcs against some Beastmen. So when my buddy Sibo told me he wanted to have a game, he also told me that he was going to bring an interesting list. And not one to be outdone, I decided to, I see your interesting list and I'll raise you an insane list. And I basically just went about making the most crazy Orc list I could with all the monsters and things I could. I really wasn't thinking tactically about it, and in the end, it actually turned out to be very risky and stupid. I'll explain that more when I go over my list. But right now, this is going to be our two generals. I have my one war boss on a Wyvern. All he has an enchanted shield. I had to keep it cheap, and he is using this Doom Lord, Doom Bull, sorry, that is always really crazy. So we got meeting engagement, which I thought was pretty lucky, and the reason why that is because if you look at my list, do not take this to a tournament. You will lose. It's a pretty crappy list. Going from left to right, I have 5 Savage Orc on Boar Boys. They have the shields. Then I have a second Wyvern Rider War Boss. That's why to keep it cheap is because I got 2 War Bosses on Wyverns. Then I have the Rock Narok. I got the 9 Wolves, and in there I got a level 2 Goblin with my scroll. Further back, I got my general there. You see the Wyvern with 6 trolls. And then on the other side of that building, I have a giant. I have 38 spiders, and in there I have that special character, the Gob Spit. I decided not to ambush them in this case. I also have Big Boss, the Night Goblin Big Boss on the Cave Squig, and I have another one on the Gigantic Spider on the far side. And as well, I also have 5 regular Boar Boys with shields and spears. So really, if it was to be Watchtower, I'd be screwed. And if it was Blood and Glory, he'd just have to kill the wolves and he'd win. So I was pretty lucky I got this. However, his list is pretty nuts. If you look at it there, he has a massive horde of his Minotaurs there. I can't remember how many it is, but it's 6 by at least. He has the 4 ranks there. And he also has the 2 characters in there. He has a Doom Bull, and he also has the BSB. Behind the one building, he has 2 spawn. He has a chariot on the far right that you can see, a chariot on the left that's out of the screen, and then he also has 70 Ungor, and in there is the one special character for them as well. So he deployed first, he's going to get first turn, and my thoughts about this was, ugh. The big thing that I was hoping to do with my monsters is really kind of like ground down troops. And the problem with Minotaurs is that not only will they kick my butt, they have extra hand weapon by the way, but the second thing is that I can't thunderstomp them. So a big part of the damage output that my monsters actually do is completely wasted. So all of a sudden I'm going to have to completely change tactics, and really what I'm planning to do here, and maybe you can kind of see it from my deployment, is to not engage those Minotaurs whatsoever. I'm going to destroy the Ungors, destroy his support units, and then if he gives me the opportunity to hit the flanks with his Minotaur horde, then maybe I'll go for it. I mean, that's why my wolves and the trolls are there, or they can be kind of baiting him while the rest will go around. But, I mean, Sibo's not a stupid guy. He's not going to fall for that. So really, in the end, it's going to be me trying to avoid them. And yeah, here's another picture of the Minotaur unit, and by the look of it, that's 22 Minotaurs with the 2 characters. So, I mean, if you throw monsters into this, I might kill a few guys, but not enough to reduce attacks, and that's a lot of strength 5 attacks. I mean, he'd probably wipe out most of my monsters in the very first round, and then get stronger. And then over here is just a little picture of my unit, the 38 spiders that kind of vanguarded up to get a little bit better. This woods here turned out to be the one that is the fungus one, but thanks to that 18-inch range of the general, they should be fine. And I mean, I'm hoping I get a flank here, but again, Sibo's not a stupid guy. I'm sure he's going to correct for it. So I don't steal the initiative in first turn, so he goes first, and I love what he does here. He basically splits his forces, and he has his Minotaurs coming down here to the bottom. He has the Ungors that turn to face my spiders. They actually tried to swift reform but failed. Both spawn are heading that way as well as you can see the chariot. And I mean, his magic phase only consists of I think his BSB has the ruby ring, and then if his special character, I can't remember his name, I mean he can turn to a sorcerer. It never happened, but I mean really weak magic phase that it does almost nothing the whole game except for one thing I'll make sure to point out. So fantastic, splitting his forces, and it should mean that I can easily run around him, and more importantly, concentrate on those other units that aren't Minotaurs. So my turn one, animosity for me was really good this game. I didn't fail anything until like the final turns. It was really good as well. None of us rolled a 1 for anything to not be starting on, so crazy dice to begin with. But anyway, my spiders charged in. I also had wanted to charge in with the giant too, but it just didn't work. You know, the way that it lined up with that spawn, there just wasn't room. And then you can see as well that my units are just kind of running around there. So into my turn, it looks like this. Mainly my things just moved out of line of sight of his Minotaurs. It was pretty close there with the Rock Narok, but I just barely made it. Otherwise, I'm just kind of running around, setting up to try and counter the chariots in the spawn, but it didn't really seem to matter too much because in that fight up there, for fun, my Gobspit declared a challenge. He took it with his special character. We were the same initiative, and the way it worked out, he killed me and I killed him. After that, he had failed his Primal Fury, which was lucky for me, and that was probably the bad part of him moving his General and BSB away from the unit. And he killed something like 9 of my guys. We worked out after the average was about 11, so I was a little bit under average. And then mine going back, it killed a bunch of guys. He was steadfast, failed, and I ran him down. So tons of points there. Fantastic, and even better yet, that panicked the one chariot off the board. So right there, you know, my little hope of trying to kill off these side units and then avoid the Minotaurs is starting to pay off. So his turn 2, his spawn hit the flank of my spiders, but in the end it didn't turn out to be so bad. You know, I did a few wounds to him, luckily with spider poison and stuff. I actually ended up winning combat actually by 1, and then I just reformed to face him, so that's going to be great. And then with his Minotaurs, he really didn't do anything because 1, I had cast the Itchy Nuisance on them, and they lost 6 movement, and then, you know, he just didn't know which way to look. I made sure to try and make it look like I was threatening him from all sides, so really he just tried to make sure that, you know, I couldn't fit both my monsters on the left, and that you know, my trolls couldn't really fit on the right side because of my wolves, and so there wouldn't be very much I could bring to bear against him. And this is exactly what I want, is him just kind of like spinning his wheels while I run around. So then my turn 2, my Rock Narok charges the other chariot on this side. It's turned out to be a moot point because after I found out I made the charge, he's like, oh yeah, I have to do a terror test, and he ran off the board. So I'm going to end up a little bit farther back for the failed charge, but again, there's another support unit down. And then at the end, it looks like this. I've killed one of the spawn, the other one's down to, I think, 1 wound or maybe 2. And as you can see, I'm just completely encircling him. I got Itchy Nuisance off again, and I took off 6 movement again. So, I mean, these poor guys. Now, this here was fantastic, and this is a little bit about using psychology in the game. I was just, you know, he was kind of getting a little bit worried actually, going, oh man, my unit's all surrounded, what am I going to do? You know, he's going to have to try and do a reform, and you know, which way is he going to face? And I was like, hey, you could put them in the building, that'd keep them safe. And he's like, yeah, that's a good idea. So he swift reform, turned around, and went into the building. So right now, all those Minotaurs are in this building, and I couldn't be happier. So end of his turn looks like this, and the one thing that I wasn't too thrilled about is that this time his spawn went crazy, and he won combat. He won by 1. I failed my test, and I got away, but you know, that also panicked my 1 gigantic spider off the board, and I really don't have anything facing them other than the 1 unit of boar boys, but you know, that should be enough to deal with the 1 spawn. So my turn 3, I send my boar boys into this 1 spawn. You might see that these are the really old boar boys. I got them online for something like $2 a model, so whatever. I don't care how ugly they are if they're cheap, and this is their first outing, so we'll see if they can actually do something. And hey, look at that, they whiff. Luckily he does no damage to me, but between 8 strength 5 attacks, I don't do a single thing. I just completely fluff. And what I'm doing here is everything just rushes the building to make sure he has no room to get out. So now that unit is just completely trapped in there, and Yeah, it's a dream come true. So his turn 4, pretty simple. He's trying to shoot out a fireball, but that's really all he can do. He sees now that he's stuck. I finally kill his spawn, so now it's only the Minotaurs. So at this point, I could easily just do nothing and win, but I decide, hey, we're both doing this to try and have a fun game, so let's try and do something with it. So I charge my Arach Narok into the building. And yeah, it didn't do too hot. Basically, he's using his one general and 2 other Minotaurs to doing the fighting. So I thought, hey, maybe I can try and do an assassination attempt. I got that one poison surge and all that stuff, so I direct my attacks at him. He's set up to have a 1+ rerollable save, and then whenever he makes a save, he gets to hit me back. So in the end, my guy is now half dead. I've done nothing to him, and now he's better because they won a round of combat, so they get +1 attack all. His turn 5, again a whole bunch of nothing. He can only try and use that fireball, but otherwise he's just stuck. My turn 5, I decide, the Rock Narok has taken its beating, so now it's time to send in the giant. And again, it's a fail. I managed to do 1 wound to his general with a headbutt, but yeah, he did 4 wounds to me and almost killed my giant from that. And again, this is another 1 combat, so now they all have another additional attack. So his turn 6, he actually gets a little bit of revenge. He gets Irresistible Force with his little fireball ring and gets a whole bunch of hits and kills a giant. So that nets him a good 200 points, and then my guy falls over and hits the building, and I can't remember if he killed a Minotaur or not, but at least he got to do something. So my turn, last turn, and I was looking at all the stuff that could charge in there, and I was like, yeah, that's just stupid. Nothing's gonna charge, and he kind of taunted me a little bit. So after we did, okay, well, let's do the general. So we kind of did it as a little separate thing, but really, he would charge in, do a challenge. He would take it with his general, and as you might expect, he just slaughtered my general. The Wyvern did nothing to him, and then the Wyvern get pushed out. So, I don't lose any points other than the 100 for killing my general. But yeah, those Minotaurs are just pretty much untouchable. So victory to the Orcs. I think, obviously the big thing that led to it was going into it with the plan of knowing the Minotaurs were just unbeatable. And I think this is really important for people to see, because a lot of times you hear all this stuff that, oh man, how do I beat this one unit? How do I do this with this one unit? When a lot of times all you can try and do is just avoid it, destroy everything else, and get the victory points and get the win. In this case, he made it a little bit easier because he fell for my little guys and threw his mega unit into a building, and then I basically just boarded it up and kept him locked in. But yeah, he was after. He's like, oh, come on, man, do you want a rematch? Because he really wanted to see this unit trying to tear something up. And I said, you know what, I'm just going to do the same thing again. I'm pretty sure that even if I did have everything perfectly lined up and was able to charge him, so I had, like 2 Wyverns hit him on one flank and the Rock Narok and the Giant on the other flank, I would still lose that fight. His general just come over, bash me. The Minotaurs themselves would bash me, and yeah, I just can't beat those guys. So anyway, it was an interesting game with some crazy lists, and I hope you liked it. Thanks.